We're going to talk about aching blue balls, exercises that are terrible for trying to have ejaculation control and non-ejaculatory orgasms. We're going to talk about how to stop being involuntarily celibate and probably some other things as well. I'm Jonathan White. I've helped thousands of men around the world learn to master their sexual energy and manifest their ideal life. This is launching a new series that I'm calling Sexual Kung Fu Expert Q&A. And basically, I take comments you guys have put on my videos, and usually which are questions, and I answer them. Let's dive in. You might see your comment featured on this video, who knows? We've got Samuel Challenge saying, I have good ejaculation control, haven't come in months while having sex on a regular basis. Good job, Samuel, you're crushing it. But I do notice that during rougher sex sessions, after a while, I get blue ball syndrome. A lot of pain in my balls and lower stomach, even though I try to circulate my energy with deep breathing and the microcosmic orbit. Do you have any advice for this? Okay, so you got blue balls, you got achy balls, and this is not uncommon. When I first started practicing sexual kung fu 11 years ago, this was something that I encountered pretty regularly. Initially, there is a bit of an adjustment. You're used to just ejaculating through sex, and so now your body's experiencing this new level of pressure and buildup. But there's two things in particular that you can do to basically stop from ever experiencing this again. The number one thing is to get really good at circulating your sexual energy. So the idea is that as this pressure is building up in your testicles, if you get too much pressure built up, it builds all this tension, and eventually that leads you to ejaculate. As you probably know if you follow my work. Instead of this buildup stuck in the genitals, we want to be constantly redirecting this through the body. This is the heart of what the sexual kung fu techniques are. The testicle breathing practice is a great resource to practice this. I have a guided video on this. But the other thing, which is maybe even more important, because once I implemented this, I never experienced blue balls again. At least it was very, very rare. And that is incorporating pelvic floor relaxation. The number one thing is you keep your pelvic floor completely relaxed during sex, which is the opposite of what a lot of people are recommending to do. Stop doing Kegel exercises, stop doing all the squeezing and tensing, and let your pelvic floor be relaxed. But this is going to take more work than just what's happening during sex. You want to be regularly incorporating pelvic floor stretching routines. I have a guided video on a really nice sequence to release pelvic floor tension. So the more that you're incorporating this into your life, the more that this area is going to open up, because the pelvic floor, it's a hot spot for tension, and we often hold a lot of sexual shame, a lot of anxiety, fears. It's very much linked to having an overactive sympathetic nervous system. So by relaxing these tension patterns from the pelvic floor, you're going to no longer experience blue balls again. And especially if you avoid getting right at the edge of ejaculating, what happens is if you're constantly on the edge of ejaculating, because I know personally, I used to love to ride that edge, like just 99.9% where the slightest touch could send me over, but it just felt so good to hover at that. But what I found was that, again, I felt extremely tense. Sometimes my pelvic floor was even painful after having sex, which we don't really want. And I experienced exactly the things you're talking about, pain in the lower belly and in the testicles. And so when I transitioned to trying to stay more so in the like 70, 80% of the way towards ejaculation range, while circulating sexual energy through my body, I was experiencing profound full body levels of orgasm and pleasure, but not having all that excessive buildup just in the genitals. Next question, Daniel Max 8515 is asking, hey Jonathan, can you recommend me one exercise to practice every day and be consistent to build energy and start mastering sexual energy? Thanks for answering. So my number one recommendation would be a practice called Zhanzhuang. And you might already be thinking, what the hell, if I can't even pronounce this thing, why would it be something I want to practice? But standing meditation, Qigong practice. Okay, I have a guided video on this. Just look up sexual kung fu, standing meditation, you'll find it. Guided Zhanzhuang practice. And what you do is you hold a posture. You stand in a certain alignment, you hold your arms in a certain alignment, and you relax physically while holding a certain shape. So you're releasing excessive levels of tension. Because what happens is we build up all of this tension in our bodies and our minds. The two are connected. Tension in the mind creates tension in the body. And so you can think of years and years of conditioning. Maybe you had some rough experiences in your childhood, and so it creates this pattern of protecting yourself from the world. I remember when I was, about 9 years old, I started to get in trouble at school because I was learning new words, usually things like dick, pussy, fuck you, things like this. And I would just like write them on notes to friends because I didn't really know what they meant. And so I got, I had a curious mind. So I would like get in trouble in school a lot for this. And looking back on it, I started losing that childhood innocence, that like dreamy, imaginative, playful mind. And I started to develop patterns of anxiety and self-judgment and shame. Of course, it only intensified once I hit teenage years. Once I discovered masturbation, there was a slippery slope there, all the shame and conditioning. So what's happening here is that we experience an intensity, and then we don't want to experience it again. We don't want to feel so like vulnerable and like shamed, whatever it is. So we develop this almost like we're trying to put on a piece of armor, and we tense areas of the body. Like, okay, I don't want to feel so exposed. I'm gonna tense my diaphragm. I'm gonna keep it tense 24/7, or my pelvic floor. I don't want to feel vulnerable in that area. So I'm gonna protect myself with these layers of tension. And like the body's not able to fully process the experience, so it locks it up. It keeps it, we're gonna hide that there. We'll process that someday. Usually that someday never comes. So you're walking around with all this armoring, all this protection, and what this feels like is you feel really tense. You just feel stuck. Like, do you have any areas of your body that tend to feel stiff, painful, tense, they can't relax? This is showing you where you are holding your protection patterns. And so what Zhanzhuang does is it helps you to be aware of where are these patterns lodged, because understanding the dynamic of the human organism, and especially the energetic system, which is functioning like a circuit board. It's life force flowing through channels and pathways. When they get stuck, your bioelectricity, so to speak, cannot flow properly, and this results in ill health and disease. So by allowing the flow of energy to open back up, the whole circuit board opens up and functions the way it's supposed to be. This is the key to health. So this is what Zhanzhuang is doing, is because when you're standing in this position for a length of time, it starts to become pretty obvious, like, damn, my shoulders are really, achy and painful. That shows you where you're blocked because you're holding them up too much. You need to relax, let it go. So you release these tension patterns from the body, and it opens up these pathways so that your life force can flow freely the way it's meant to be. This is going to increase your sexual vitality because more flow, more chi flow equals more blood circulation, more hormonal production, vitality. My health improved dramatically, my energy levels, my sexual vitality, when I started practicing this exercise. And in terms of sexual ability, you have to be able to release excessive tension from your mind and body and develop body awareness. You have to understand, like, okay, this is what my lower belly is feeling. Oh, it's a little tense. Let me relax it. These skills directly correlate into sex, to be able to open up pathways so your pleasure can move throughout your body instead of being lodged in your genitals. And the grounding that you learn from Zhanzhuang, you learn to hold more sensation without caving in. You learn to hold your body in this position, even though it's uncomfortable, without giving up. Same thing during sex. You learn how to stay engaged and to handle the pressure of sexual pleasure without ejaculating. So if you were just to do one sexual kung fu exercise, Zhanzhuang would be a fantastic one. And by the way, I have some really great exercises that will help you build your ejaculation control in my free ebook, which you can get in the description of this video, and it also contains links to videos that will guide you through the practices. So that's your ticket to sexual mastery, at least a good starting point. Javal Joshi 43271 says, "Hi brother, I have recently learned external lock through 3 fingers from Taoist Secrets of Love book. Does this technique force semen into the bladder? Also, there's a lot of work of squeezing in the big draw technique." Okay, this technique, which it's from Mantak Chia's books, The Taoist Secrets of Love, Cultivating Male Sexual Energy, which is a classic, but the practices are very outdated. And a lot of these, the same practices in the Multi-Orgasmic Man book from Mantak Chia. They're great books, good information, but the problem is this tension-based practices to try to control your sexual energy, to try to control ejaculation. Like in one of the books, he talks about, I think he calls them PC push-ups, basically just squeezing your pelvic floor as tight as you possibly can over and over and over again. And the idea is if your pelvic floor is so strong, you can just squeeze off an ejaculation just like that. Like that's the key to ejaculation control, which unfortunately is not true. It's a misunderstanding in how this area of the body works and how ejaculation control works. Like it's true if you're on the edge and you do a squeeze, like it can prevent you from ejaculating. But what this is also doing is ingraining a lot of tension into your system. As I've talked about a lot, tension is the enemy of both ejaculation control and orgasms, and specifically pelvic floor tension. So, and the whole thing is, if you can keep the pelvic floor relaxed, your energy is going to flow freely through your body, and you'll never have a buildup to ejaculation in the first place. So in the big draw, you're squeezing all these muscles, and yes, it can help, because like physically you're drawing out all this blood and like nervous system information out of the genitals, but it creates a lot of contraction. And it can be a valuable training tool, but I don't recommend doing this long term, because personally, when I was using this practice, I remember I would squeeze everything and shove the energy up, and it would slam into my brain and give me just like an intense headache. And where I went in my sexual kung fu training was to instead open up the body from the ground up, open up the belly, the lower dantian, open up the spinal pathways through qigong practices, doing this over time, so that instead of needing to like use all this tension and force the energy up, which often causes it to get stuck in the head, which is not pleasant, you open up the body over a system of training, and it becomes actually really simple to just guide the energy up using your mind, okay? And so having the foundations in place, Zhuang is great for training for this. Will help with that. And as far as the 3-finger lock, which is the $1 million point, it's a shitty technique. I don't recommend it. I don't practice it. I did use it for a while in the beginning, because again, it was like what they tell you to do in the books. Like there's this whole story of like, oh yes, he was a wealthy businessman in ancient China, whatever. And he would find this Taoist monk, and he would pay him 1 million gold pieces to teach him the $1 million point. And so the Taoist would teach him, yes, you press your fingers in here, which physically blocks not the vas deferens, actually the urethra, where the urethra connects to the prostate and the seminal vesicles. So it forces the semen to stay inside the body instead of ejaculating outwards. And this sounds good in theory, but ultimately it's very forceful. You build up a lot of intense internal pressure. Some men have experienced internal bleeding from doing this. Plus, you still end up having a peak orgasm. You still end up having this tension-based orgasm, which is just a genital orgasm, and usually you experience a refractory period, there's somewhat of an energy loss, and the most common thing that happens is that the semen is simply redirected into the bladder. Next time you go pee, it's all foamy, which means that your semen went into the bladder, and then you urinated out. So you basically ejaculated, but just in a different form. So I don't recommend this technique. It's unnecessary, it's forceful. The whole thing of sexual kung fu is training yourself to never hit the point of no return, the point at which you ejaculate in the first place, instead of like trying to do something desperately at the last minute. And the last, it's not exactly a question so much as something that I do want to address, because I think it's a good subject. So Animal Alchemist 33 made this comment saying, I don't seem to attract friends. I don't want relationships because I don't believe in them. They can be painful, and romance is all conditional anyway. And even so, it doesn't feel like anyone's attracted to me in any form. I'm celibate, I fast, I cycle, I meditate, I'm disciplined in that sense. My tarot cards told me to ask some woman to a meal. I only meant it as friends, but she just made excuses. She seemed like she quite liked me before that. I don't like asking anyone to be my friend, especially women. I don't really like people, but my tarot told me to, and she seemed knowledgeable. My libido still exists, especially if I eat anything non-sattvic. I just try to lower my libido. I don't want to desire anybody or feel lonely. I would just like it if I was extremely magnetic. Celibacy is supposed to make you glowing and magnetic. I don't understand why I'm not. If anything, it seems like my magnetism has decreased from when I was a 20-year-old wanker. So there's a lot here. And I want to address this because this is important. It's not uncommon for men on this path. People like to kind of make this into this whole spiritual thing of like, oh, it's my past life karma, or like I'm on the spiritual path, so I have to be celibate, and I can only do what my tarot cards tell me to do. And I'm not trying to make fun of anyone. In my opinion, in my experience, this is coming from a bit of a delusional, it's a lack of ownership. It's a lack of ownership for your current circumstances in life, the situation that you've created, because you have created your life. You've created the environment you're in. You've created the dynamics of it. And like, yes, it's a result of conditioning and your belief systems, but here's the thing. You can change this. So it sounds like there's this conflict inside of you. Like this kind of sounds like this cry out to help for me. It's like, it sounds like you truly desire to have sexual connection. You desire sex. You desire a relationship. You desire love and connection with others, which is good. It's healthy too. But you have, saying, well, I don't like people. Romance is conditional. Relationships are painful. So there's this negative association with interacting with people. And my guess is that you've had painful experiences in the past. Maybe you had, friends that stabbed you in the back. You had a lover that hurt you, maybe betrayed you, maybe you were cheated on. And guess what? I've been through all these things. I was in a nearly 5-year relationship with a woman who I thought was my soulmate, my twin flame, and I was getting married. And guess what? She was sleeping with my friend while making me sleep on the couch, and I didn't completely realize the situation until it became obvious. Then I got out of there. And so that happened to me. So I could have become celibate. I could say, okay, well, I'm going to go on the spiritual path and namaste and but I didn't. Because what I learned from this was that I did something that created the situation. I did something that made this woman want to be with someone else. And I'm gonna get back into that. And there's also this piece on, you expect women to just come to you. Like you want to be magnetic so that women just come to you. You don't have to initiate anything. And so what this is all leading to is what my realization came from was that I was not in my masculine energy. I was a nice guy. I was being a people pleaser. I was overly nice. I was diffusing polarity in my relationship. And this caused my girlfriend at the time to seek out a man who was a bit more wild, a bit more dangerous, a bit more rugged, a bit more manly than me. There's a lot of layers to this. What you can see is that you have an opportunity now to choose what kind of life do you want to have. And it sounds to me like you do actually want to have deep friendships and deep relationships and great sex. Who doesn't want that? I want that. I think we all do. And so what's holding you back from this is, number one is all these negative associations. You associate a potential interaction with a woman as leading to pain and suffering. And at the same time, I'm guessing that you kind of hold yourself back. You said you asked a woman to a meal, but only as friends. So this represents a very strong indirectness. Like, I'm guessing you were attracted to this woman. It's like, well, let's go to a meal just as friends. But women know. They know that they know what your real intention is. And it's not that that's a problem. Like, it's when they know your intention is something more, but you're not saying it, that it feels very like, ugh, like this guy is afraid to just ask me on a date, essentially. What I'm getting to is like owning your intentions and being clear about it. Like, hey, you're really attractive. I find you attractive. Maybe, maybe you were friends with her before, but it's like, I'm going to be real. Like, I'm attracted to you. And like, I want to see if like we could be more than friends. And why don't you go grab some Korean food with me? 7 o'clock Tuesday night. So see how that's very direct versus like, well, what if we got a meal as friends? Maybe, I don't know, what kind of food do you like? So it's like, there's this difference in the energy, all right? And here's the thing. Once you start being more direct and open and vulnerable with people, men and women, like just being real and being present, that's how you're going to attract real friendships and real relationships. Women want boldness. They want to see the real version of you. They want to feel your leadership, your decisiveness, and that you have like a plan and that you're going somewhere in life, okay? So it's like, with all these things in place, this is how you get yourself out of a lonely, isolated, sexless life. The magnetism comes from you being yourself, not being afraid to ask a woman on a date in a direct way instead of, making it extremely indirect. The magnetism comes from maybe you're hanging out with guys and you're just being real, saying, hey, this is who I am. This is what I believe in. This is what I think's cool. Instead of like molding your behavior based on, well, what do I think they want to hear me say? That will always keep you closed off. So to sum things up, you're very closed off. You're closed off from the world because you're not allowing the world to see your true self. Maybe you don't know who you are fully. So that's part of it as well. Is who are you? Who do you want to be? What do you want to do with your life? Take away these barriers that you have from the external world. Love yourself. Fill yourself up, have a mission in life, have a purpose, and by doing so, allowing yourself to just have fun in your interactions with people instead of being, well, I have to be this like perfect spiritual namaste person. Like, that's all a trap. It's a fucking trap, and it's going to keep you lonely and isolated forever. So when you start to implement this, when you start to break down the cage, and it really is just you freeing yourself, that's what's going to create the magnetism. But it's not that like you just sit here and retain your semen and everything is done for you. It doesn't work. It's about you more boldly penetrating the world. You more boldly being out there, being yourself. That is what creates the magnetism. It's about you allowing yourself to be seen for who you are. Not trying to be what you think people want you to be. Oh, I need to be like the perfect celibate monk doing these meditations, blah, 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 blah. No, that's not you. That's a practice you have, but beneath that, there's a child. There's an inner child that wants to play, that wants to be spontaneous, that wants to explore and just have fun without all these layers of well, this is what society tells me I'm supposed to be, so you should like this. You should like these external things about me. No, it's just you. It's the real you. It's the deep you. That is who you want to start bringing out into the world, okay? All right, we went deep with that one, but it's a deep subject. Why are so many men sexless and miserable and lonely and like, you know, self-induced celibate? It's unnecessary, but it's there's a lot of layers to that. I think that wraps it up for this first Sexual Kung Fu Expert Q&A series. If you have any questions you want me to do on the next video, put them in the comments, you know. And there's nothing too weird. There's nothing too wild or crazy. No filters here, so let's see what you got, boys. All right, make sure you hit subscribe, give this video a like. Take care out there, my friends.